we're in trances, going off to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed. You like the fast life, you like to drive and get down and dirty, act like the bad guy. You want some love, be like when you feel like.
Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to The Real ZB. It is 12 o'clock, which is breakfast / lunchtime for me because I am intermittent fasting. Today we have all of these nice goodies at work. So I got the pastry, I got a quiche, and then I got a slice of cake and milk tart. So that is my lunch. And in the kapanga hot chocolate. This is so perfect for the weather, but I'm gonna have to work a little bit harder later on at the gym today. So having a productive morning. Let me just catch you up. I had 2 meetings. One meeting was on site, which it's always nice to get out of the office. Went to that meeting, came back, had another meeting here at the office with clients, and I just spent the rest of the morning just, planning my day and planning my week. By the way, it's Monday. I don't know if I said that. It's Monday. I've just been planning my day, planning my week, and now it's time for me to have my first meal of the day. And Sana, I'm going to have to work very hard at the gym this afternoon, but Christmas comes around once a year, so I have to indulge. But yeah, let me eat my lunch and I will catch up with you guys somewhere along the line.
Your heart, keep it in your pocket for safekeeping. Don't ever let nobody be the reason you throw it out, you stop caring about it. Don't let your head get in the way, can't be defined by your mistakes. You know you try really hard, but sometimes you fall, yeah, sometimes you fall. Say I'm not sensitive, but I can sense if it's right for me. Don't let your head get in the way, can't be defined by your mistakes. You know you try really hard, but sometimes you fall, yeah, sometimes you fall.
Molweni guys, Molweni. While I have you guys here, I actually want to speak about something that numerous people have asked me on my various platforms to do a video about, and that is to share my experience of doing CTA part-time while I was also a full-time employee. So I'm just gonna go through my experience, and then I'm gonna share also some tips that had helped me keep the balance between being a student and being a full-time worker, and being able to show up as those people whenever I needed to. So yeah, I hope this is helpful for someone who is thinking about doing CTA full-time or part-time. You don't see a lot of people sharing their experience online about their part-time CTA experience. Hopefully this is the first of many. And yeah, let me first start off with Unisa, the institution, because I did my CTA through Unisa. Let me just let me just go through how I found the whole Unisa process, okay? My experience with Unisa, first of all, with the admin side of it, it was atrocious, okay? It was atrocious. It was a little bit of a shock to me because it was a little bit disorganized for my liking, especially when it came to the tut letters and everything. I just feel like there was a lot of chaos in that process because I remember back in my CTA year that we received our test 1, test 2 tutorial letters, I think after we had written test 2. So there was actually no point in posting us those tutorial letters, okay? And for people who didn't have like unlimited access to digital platforms to be able to get those tutorial letters, I can imagine that that period was so stressful because you needed those TUT letters in order to study or to teach yourself what was going to come out in test 1 and test 2. And just an alarming number of people didn't receive their tutorial letters on time. I was one of those, and some of them didn't receive them at all. Okay, so for me that process was a little bit of a shock, but luckily we had such a great support system at where I trained that we had access to digital platforms. Like I said, we were able to print our tutorial letters if we needed to, and yeah, that kind of helped us along. But I can just imagine for people who didn't have that support system, how incredibly stressful it must have been. But one thing that I will say when it comes to the registration process, the people who are helping me at Unisa are ride or die, okay? They are ride or die because what had happened was, okay, if you didn't know, I did CTA 1 and CTA 2, okay? So I thought it was all one qualification. And I sort of did not see the notices. Again, going back to the admin thing, I sort of didn't see the notices or the announcements that said that CTA 1 students need to need to apply for CTA 2 by a certain date. And literally the day after that date, I found out that I actually had to apply for CTA 2. And I had passed CTA 1, so I literally had to phone Unisa, like literally beg them to admit me into this course, okay? And shame, the people that I spoke with in the accounting department was so helpful. They wanted to help. They would check in with me. They did everything they could. And obviously they were successful in the end because I was able to register for CTA 2 the following year. But literally they were so ride or die. They were so willing to help me. So shame, I can't take that away from Unisa. I had an amazing experience when it came to registering for the actual courses, both my CTA 1 and my CTA 2. Registering for those, I felt like I was helped. I felt like I was helped through it. I felt like I was taken care of. I felt like I was supported by Unisa people. So shame, I can't take that away from them. But the other aspects of their admin leaves a lot to be desired. And then when it came to my academics, I feel like it was manageable. I'll be honest. I feel like for me personally, it was manageable. And I think a large part of why it was manageable was because of where I trained. They had so much support for people who are doing CTA, okay? They enrolled us in study supports that they paid for. They had extra classes with study support people. They had something called the boot camp, where basically the top 30 students across the firm would go to Pretoria for 4 weeks or 5 weeks to just study, like literally just quality knowledge. And I had the privilege to be actually selected to go to that boot camp during my CTA 2. And Jonga, it really, really helped me. Like, I think if not all of the people that were at the boot camp when I was there, if not all of us, most of us are actually chartered accountants, because that boot camp wasn't only like good for CTA, but it was good for ITC as well. It was also good for like APC as well. So Jay, we had a lot of support. And just outside, you know, the study support, we at the Western Cape Business Unit, we had Booty who had qualified as chartered accountants, who had decided by they were going to sacrifice their time and energy and take us through extra lessons with them, and they would sort of mentor us and teach us on some, I can't remember, I think it was one night a week or something like that. But literally everyone was like hands on deck trying to get abantu who are doing CTA to be successful at CTA. Like, and I think that's why I have like this desire to help people, because I feel like I'm sort of paying it forward and paying all that knowledge that I had gained from the various people that I had as support systems when I was in CTA. We had academic mentors that were allocated to us, also mentors that we could actually choose. I remember I had 2 mentors that had been allocated to me in the Western Cape Business Unit. One of them was more like I could bounce off ideas off him and just bounce off my thought process, and when I was feeling overwhelmed, I'd sort of like look to him for guidance. The other one, Deirdre, was my prayer warrior. Like, she was there. I knew that she was fighting my battles on her knees, because she would send me scriptures whenever we'd have academic discussions. Deirdre, oh, I love her so much. Like, I hope she knows wherever she is. Bah, girl, ma'am, you really anyways, it's not that kind of video. But like, she would send me like Bible verses, and like that was very important for me at the time, because that period of my life was like you know, my lack of faith. That was my lack of faith period, and just me trying to climb out of a hole where I had sort of given up on faith and all of that stuff. So Deirdre just injected that back into me and injected that fire within me, and we'd have academic discussions, and she would just give me that God has got you kind of thing. And I would feel like going into that exam, but God has got me nyani, and she would pray over me. She would send me like izinto encouraging, and she would just encourage me. So I feel like having that mentor kind of relationship with my various mentors was so important to me at the time while I was doing CTA. So that's probably my first tip in this video, is to get yourself a mentor. It doesn't have to be someone who is qualified yet. It can be someone who has been through CTA and has been successful in it. It can be someone who's a year higher than you. It can be someone who's just qualified as a CA. It can be someone who's been a CA for years. Just anyone that is going to be relatable to you. I feel like mentors need to be people who you can relate with, or who you can relate to, because those are the people that you're going to be the most vulnerable with. You don't want a mentor where you have to pretend like everything is okay, because then that's not going to work out. You know, you need someone that you are able to be vulnerable with, that you're able to show or 20% back and be like, listen, I got 20% for tax, I got 30% for auditing, and that person's not going to judge you or feel like you're a failure. That person's going to cheer you on through your highs and your lows. So think of who that person is in your life, or if you don't have that person in your life, go out and seek for that person, because you need a mentor through CTA. You need a support system through CTA, especially when you are doing it part-time with a full-time job on the side. When it comes to workload, CTA is a lot of work. Ne? There is a lot to cover with CTA. But also there is a lot to cover as a trainee, because you're working towards being an expert in the field. So you can imagine that the workload is a lot. The hours are a lot. And Gesana, you are expected to produce the same quality of work, the same hours, the same amount of work as somebody who isn't studying. So it's that thing where you are going to have to work twice as hard, because galoko unentshontsho CTA on the side, you know. I actually think now, when I was doing my CTA, I was the most diligent I've ever been. Like, I would literally leave the house at 5 a.m. in the morning, because I knew that if I leave any later than 5 a.m., then I'm gonna get to work late, which means I can't leave work early in order for me to be back in time to study at a reasonable time. Yeah, well, so it's that thing where I had to literally, every minute of my day had to be accounted for. You know, I didn't want to be one of those people who study like well into the night, because one, that's not healthy, and I had to be like present at my job. So luckily, like back then, we were able to leave work early if we came to work early. So I was using public transport at that time, so that is why I had to leave home at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I would get to work at around about 7:15. So if I got to work at 7:15, it meant that at 3:30 in the afternoon, I could make my way back home, and I would get home around about 4:30, 5, right? Which is a good time to get home, relax a little bit, have something to eat, and then study for a while. So I had to do that, you know. I had to be on top of my time, because if I'd let it go, then I would have literally never had time to study. Yo, guys, and just thinking about those days, like, we were expected to be at work for 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. Like, I can't even imagine a time when I must leave my house, go to the office physically in person for 5 days a week. I'm struggling to even do it for 3 days. Honestly, like, I don't know how we did it, but sana, I can't imagine. Like, literally, I would leave home at 5 a.m. for 5 days a week. Like, that was what I was doing, and I was okay. I can't imagine. It just doesn't seem like that's something that I did. It seems like a whole lifetime ago. But literally, that's what I had to do, and I made do with what I had. And then, like, when it comes to like the difficulty of the actual workload kwa CTA, to be honest, like, don't take my word for it, because now I'm not andingumdo who likes to complain, you know. I'm not someone who likes to complain. I'm not someone who is scared of something that is challenging. So it might have been challenging, I don't know, but for me, I felt like it was manageable. I had a whole formula as to how I was going to get myself into the exam, and then from the exam, this is how I was going to get myself a pass from the exam. Like, I don't feel like the workload itself was difficult, but I do acknowledge that a lot of people find it difficult. So that's why I'm saying don't take my word for it. Okay, but for me, I feel like it was manageable. It was, you know, interesting. It was interesting to unlock izinto that I hadn't thought of in before. I love learning new things, so I felt like it was interesting learning a different way of thinking, and getting a different perspective into things. I really enjoyed that. And I felt like as long as I put in the work, as long as I went through what was expected for me to do, as long as I understood what was happening and was able to apply it in any situation, I felt like, okay, I could do this, you know. So I didn't feel like it was rocket science at all. I still don't feel like it's rocket science at all, but I just think it's a little bit of a shock. It's a little bit different from, you know, undergrad, but I think for me it wasn't too different from undergrad. I feel like EUCT, the way that they taught us in undergrad, is facing towards CTA and facing towards the ITC. So the way that we would write our exams, the way that we were taught in class, the way that we were expected to answer izinto were very much similar to how the ITC was, and CTA it's a preparation for the ITC. So I don't feel like there was anything different about the material. Obviously, like it was a little bit of an adjustment because it was another institution and they called things by different names, and you had to sort of get used to that, and also get used to not having like actual in-person lectures and you being your own lecturer. Lucky for me, I did another, you know, postgraduate before I did my CTA. I did another postgraduate at UCT, and to be honest, I didn't attend a lot of those lectures. So a lot of that postgraduate was just me teaching myself. So I was already like comfortable with the concept of being my own lecturer, of being my teacher, using all the resources that I had at my disposal to be able to knowledge is pongo, you know. So yeah, it wasn't that much of an adjustment because it was more preferable for me to be my own to be my own lecturer, because I could spend more time on topics where I felt like I needed to spend more time, but then on topics where I was on top of them, I could just go high level or just get, you know, the points that I need to get and move on. So I could also just have my own pace and go through things like according to my own understanding. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some tips that you can implement if you are already doing CTA part-time or if you're thinking about it. Firstly, my biggest one, I think I've already mentioned it, be on top of those TAT letters, okay? Be on top of those TAT letters. Make sure that you know what you need to know in test 1, in test 2, in test 3, in test 4. You know, go through those TAT letters. Make sure that you're on top of them. Do not fall behind, because the worst thing that you can do is get to the end or just before you need to write exams, or just before test 4. In fact, test 4 is the most stressful because that's normally your do or die when it comes to DP. So just make sure that before test 4, you've covered everything. Make sure that you don't fall behind, because guys, it's a manageable workload, ne? If you keep on top of it. But if you fall behind, like, use your Saturdays if you need to. If you are having a busy week when it comes to work, and it happens, you know, sometimes you need to work overtime, and then you won't have a pressure that you had set aside for yourself to study. At least if you know by on Saturday you're free, use your Saturday morning to just catch up on what you lost. Secondly, plan how you are going to get into the exam from day 1, okay? So they tell you, again, I'm going to use an example of how it worked when I was doing CTA. So when I was doing CTA, we already knew that we've got 4 tests in the year, and that 2 out of those 4 tests were going to count towards your DP. So your highest 2 are going in each and every module are going to count towards your DP, okay? And we had 5 modules. So this is what I had decided to do. And I said I went through CTA 1. And then when I went into CTA 2, I was like, listen, because I remember from last year that this is how this DP situation works. How about this year I try and be intentional about getting a high DP? So this is what I did. I identified which were my weakest modules. My weakest modules were definitely groups and FAC, so my financial reporting modules, and then also tax. So I needed to make sure that in test 1 and test 2, I was getting high DPs for those 3 modules, right? So I made sure that in test 1 and test 2, I was studying those 3, okay? I was more focused on those 3 so that I know that by test 2, I've already got DP for them, and not just DP, more than DP. I've passed them, basically. Like I've got a pass mark. That was my benchmark. Like I wanted pass marks for all of my DPs, so that I'm not under pressure in the exam. Ne? So I decided that test 1 and test 2, I'm focusing on getting DP for tax, FAC 1 and FAC 2, which is groups and just normal financial reporting. Ne? And then the other 2, auditing, the MENEC, I knew I could pull those out of the bag at any time because like those 2, I knew that even if it meant that in test 3 and test 4, I was working towards a DP of those, I knew that I was going to get them no matter what. I knew that no matter what, I was going to get DP for auditing and MENEC. So I wasn't too stressed about them, But obviously, I would still keep on top of the workload, but when it came to actually studying for the tests, I would focus on the other 2 in the first half of the tests, and then in test 3 and test 4, obviously I can focus we auditing yam, the MENEC yam, which meant that at the end of the day, my DP marks, because they took the top 2 marks, they took the top 2 test marks out of 4 tests. It means that by test 4, all of my subjects across the board are pass marks. Yabo? And then which means I'm not under pressure in the exam to move from, say, 40% to 50%. I know that I'm comfortable. I've already got a pass mark. So let me just write the exam and do my best at the exam. It's just that thing where you're managing your stress, okay? Don't put yourself under pressure. Especially with test 4, guys. You don't want to be in a situation where your test 4 is make or break for you. You don't want to be you don't want to minga, but you'll get DP or you won't get DP. So make sure that you're intentional. Plan out your year and say, listen, I'm going to try get my hardest ones first. And then the ones that you're strong at will always follow. Like you don't even have to try, You know that if you study them well, you will get them. But as into that you find tricky, make sure they're out of the way first. That is the best thing that I could have ever done when it comes to being intentional about my DP. And I always tell my mentees this, Labana, get your weakest soldiers out of the way, okay? And then your strongest soldiers will follow. Another thing that you have to do to make sure that you're keeping the balance is to make time to do the things that you love. Because Zana, if you only focus on the books, you are going to drive yourself up the wall, okay? If you're always at work, if you're not at work, you're doing school. If you're not doing school, you're at work. I won't even lie to you. You're not going to make it because, yes, the CTA is a mind game, hey? CTA is the game of the mind, okay? And this is exactly the reason why you find that abantu abafundileyo abane degree ezinkulu end up not being successful with CTA. It's not just about knowledge or theory, even though it is the certificate theory in accounting. But it's not just about theory. It's about being able to persevere. It's about being as slippery as an eel. It's about being able to adapt. It's about being able to apply. So you need to always make sure that you are doing the things that make you sane. Okay, make sure that you don't let go of izinto that are going to make you sane. My senior manager actually, when I joined the workforce, when I was a trainee at first, like, she didn't allow any of her trainees to date. She would be like, books before boys, because boys bring babies. But like, Sana, what else am I supposed to do? You know, chow course, chow course, chow course, and then course chows you. No, honey. So I was dating the whole time that I was in CTA. And azange nipumento, guys. Azange nipumento. I was able to do my CTA, but like, don't be so deep in the boys that your studies start to, start to lag. Everything must be done in balance. You need to be able to balance everything. Don't be so deep in the boys that ukubone izifundo zakho, now you are starting to not take care of it. You're starting to not take care of work either. And don't get pregnant by these boys, okay? Do not get pregnant by these boys, because Zana, CTA is already a lot without you adding on the pressure of being somebody's parent. But yeah, she used to say that she doesn't allow her trainees to date. But Sencho, like, do things that are gonna make you sane, okay? Go out with your friends every now and then, don't like completely ghost. I know that because you want to be so successful at CTA so badly that you might like dig your head in the sand, so to speak, and you want to like bury your head in the books, and you just want to always, every moment of time that you get, you want to be doing CTA, you want to be doing work, you want to be doing past papers. But make sure that you give yourself some time to breathe, some time to, lift up your head from the books a little bit and have a little bit of fun. Do things that are going to fulfill you and make you like forget that you're a student worker. And when it comes to trying to do a balancing act with all of the aspects of life that need you to appear in, you need to be extremely organized as someone who is going to do their CTA and is going to do their CTA part-time and work full-time as well. Because Sana, like I said, you need every single day of the week to be accounted for. You need every single hour to be accounted for. So you need to know, Bana, you're doing work at this time, and then at this time you need to set a study timetable. Your timetable needs to be fairly consistent, which is why it's like easier to do like CTA in groups, right? But I'll speak about that a little bit later. So you need to be extremely, extremely organized. You need to know when your tests are. You need to know when you need to be doing what tutorial letters came out today, what extra lessons you need to attend. So you need to be sort of on top of things. Like I've been saying this whole video, you need to stay on top of your game. If you fall behind a little bit, make sure you've got Ezamini where you catch up. And also just be self-aware enough to know your productive times, know when you are productive so that you can slot in your study sessions when you are productive. Abanye abantu are productive early in the morning when, no one is awake yet. So if you are that person, you have to wake up early, study, and then go to work, come back, and then you know that it's out of the way and you're relaxing. Some people study better in the afternoon. Some people study better. Like, you know yourself. You know when it's better to study. So whenever it's better for you to study, slot that amount of time in to your calendar. You have to have a calendar, you have to have a diary, you have to just be organized with your time, and you need to account for your productive time. Sometimes when you're in varsity, because kalogo it's full-time studying, sometimes you'll sit down to study and you'll end up just watching series, or you'll end up watching Intomani, you'll go down a rabbit hole on YouTube, or you'll end up listening to an album, and you'll find that you were studying but you didn't really absorb anything. CTA part time, there's no time for that. Any time that is scheduled for you studying, you need to make sure that it is valuable. You need to make sure that you are actually studying and actually coming out nento from that study session. If you go into a study session and you feel like, actually, I'm not feeling it, rather not study that day and catch up another day when you are productive, So it's that thing where you need to be able to adapt to certain situations, because you're not going to want to study the whole time. Yabo. So you need to be accountable to yourself to say, okay, today I wasn't productive, so tomorrow let's pick it up. Let's pick up the pace. Let's take a break today, and then tomorrow we come back stronger. Yabo. So you are able to do that. Doesn't mean that just because you've got now this calendar that it's set in stone. It's never set in stone, but it's just a guide so that you don't end up wasting ixesha lakho, because if you don't have your time accounted for, you will end up wasting a lot of time and procrastinating. I don't know, maybe I'm the one with the problem, since ndingumntu who procrastinates. So I need to sort of have izinto written down by ngexesha elithile, you need to be doing this. On this day, you need to be doing this. But if you are not burdened by such a problem, then maybe you can go through life without writing things down, without having a timetable. But now I know if I don't have it written down, if I don't make a date for myself or make an appointment with myself, I know that it will never be done. So I have to implement these things where I sort of have to have a timetable. Otherwise, I will never study. I will never get anything done. So if you are like me and we are procrastinator, then it's a nice thing to put the time on paper. One important thing that you need to be comfortable with when you're doing CTA is to not give up until the very last moment that they say, okay, it's over. Don't give up. As long as you still have a chance, give it your best shot. If you completely just fail dismally, test 1, go with your best shot in test 2. You fail that, go with your best shot in test 3. Go with your best shot in test 4. Even if you are sitting on 40% as a DP mark, go and give the exams your best shot. Like, don't give up. I know it's like a long year. It's a long year. Your CTA year is probably one of the longest years of your life. But don't give up. Don't give up, Sana. There will be times, trust me, there are times when course is chowing. When course is chowing you, Sana, you just want to deregister same time and just cocoon yourself in a blanket and never come out of that cocoon blanket cocoon. And you just never want to come out of that. And you're just like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, there's no reason why I'm doing this to myself. Like, let me just quit this. And a lot of us went through Ezomini where we're just like, listen, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Let me quit it. Let me quit while I'm ahead. And if you are feeling like that, it's completely normal. Doesn't mean that you should actually quit. We've all been there, guys. We've all been there when course rocks you so hard and you're so tired. You're so tired because you've been working long hours. You've been working long hours, and it feels like, especially like taufika at your workplace. You're working so hard and you're trying so hard to get things right, and just aren't going your way. And you still, even your studies aren't going your way. And you're just like, actually, There's no reason. And this will be if I give up on this thing. Like, a lot of us literally have had those thoughts. A lot of us have been there where we are completely rocked and nobody understands. Nobody understands, mana. Like, nobody at home understands. But listen, this thing is chowing, you know? But just hold on. Take it one day at a time. If you can just do 1% better each and every day, show up and be 1% better than you were yesterday. Promise you, that is the character, that is the kind of drive or perseverance or endurance that is going to get you through. That is going to sort of be lando that differentiates umdu who passes CTA and umdu who doesn't pass CTA, or umdu who gives up on the CA journey and someone who sees it through. You know, it's literally the person who endures and endures well is somebody who is going to be successful as a chartered accountant. I'm reminded by one of my former colleagues, Budmbeko. Guys, Budmbeko, when I think of his story with CTA in particular, it took him more than 10 years. More than 10 years to do this thing. I think it took him a total of 13 years to become a CA. And guess what? Budmbeko, like, he was the most cheerful person while we were studying. He would cheer us on. He would be like, come on guys, we can do this. Like, such positive vibes. And Umdu had been doing CTA for more than 10 years. And Umdu had done ITC. I think he did ITC twice. And, oh guys, it's literally a thing where the people who endure well are the people who are successful at it. Literally, it's an endurance game. It's a mind game. It's a thing where you need to want it for yourself and you need to want it enough. And no matter what stumbling blocks are placed upon your way, no matter what things are going to delay you from getting there, you just need to keep your eye on the prize and not give up. And that is something that is going to differentiate those who make it and those who drop off. Now, let's talk about the study group. Ne? Study groups are crucial when it comes to CTA. But this study group, it mustn't be just a group of your friends, because unless your friends are like super focused and super just like military with their studying, it's not gonna work, because you're gonna get distracted. You're gonna end up gossiping the whole time, and it's just gonna be a waste of everybody's time, you know. But to meet in groups and just to hear about what other people think about the coursework, to hear ezinye perspectives, is something that helped me a lot. Like I said, Tina, we had Obuti who were holding extra lessons for us at the Western Cape Business Unit, and a lot of us trainees. And you know, we had first year, second year, third year trainees, audit seniors, everyone who was doing CTA and who wanted to be in those classes. They would attend those classes, and it would just be nice to hear from other people, like how they found the homework, how they found the coursework, how they finding a certain section, what they think the approach should be, and all of that stuff. So it's really nice to have people to bounce your ideas off, and people who understand exactly what you're going through. And yeah, it's just nice to have like a little group where you are able to support each other through CTA. Another thing that I want to mention is that lecturers avail themselves by giving you guys their numbers, their personal numbers, and their email addresses for a reason. For a reason. If you are stuck instead of sitting in your corner or asking your peers, how about you go straight to the source? Ask the lecturer to go through something with you. Call the lecturer, set up a meeting. If you don't understand something, you need to be that person if you want to be successful at this thing. I know it might be a little bit intimidating because kubani lecturers intimidating sometimes, and you just don't want to approach them, but I promise you they are the nicest people on planet Earth, especially lecturers like in the accounting faculty. They are so nice, and they want you to ask questions. They want to teach you. They want that breakthrough for you. But a lot of people just sort of, I don't know if they forget that they can actually call the lecturers or they can consult with the lecturers. But literally people will sit there and be stuck for weeks. You don't have time to be stuck for weeks. If you're stuck on something, make an appointment with the lecturer until you get it, and then you move on. And that is why they give you guys their personal numbers. That's why they give you guys their email addresses, and by a pendula they do answer. Like I remember I even spoke to the dean of accounting college at one point, just like back and forth emails, and she would answer. It was another lady back then, but approach these people, because they know exactly, they've been trained for this. They've been trained to lecture you. So why aren't you making use of them? Why aren't you consulting with them? You'd rather just sit there with a problem, and then it comes up and you make that mistake in your test, and then you make that same mistake again in your exam. Guys, you need to learn how to position yourself, to put yourself in the best position to succeed. Be that person who calls the lecturers, and I promise you'll see a difference in indlela owenza ngayo academically. A crucial part of CTA, guys, is application. So as much as I know a lot of you degreed people like theory, hey niyathanda unqaya and ndiniqaphele uba niyathanda unqaya, and it's not going to work in CTA. You need to be able to apply, darling. So a lot of your study session should be going through past papers and then identifying your weaknesses through going through past papers, and then going back to study the theory on the things that you don't understand. You went through a whole undergraduate degree. You know the theory, but do you know how to apply the theory? That is what CTA is all about. You need to apply the theory. That's why at Unisa it's called the Postgraduate Diploma in Applied Accounting Sciences. You need to apply it. And then you're gonna get away with it. You can't ngaya your way through CTA, unfortunately. And I think that shocks a lot of people. A lot of people are not comfortable with the fact that you can't you can't theorize your way out of CTA. You have to apply. You have to do past papers. And you need to know the why of things. Why are things done a certain way? Because kuzoza a question that comes from another perspective you haven't thought of. And because you don't know the why, you won't know what they are looking for. So you need to go through past papers so that you can be trained in the way of thinking. Yabo, you need to be trained on how to apply your knowledge. You are now applying your knowledge. So you need to go through past papers so that you can be able to exercise that muscle of being able to apply what you already know. And in the same breath of going through past papers, what I like to do, I picked this up in my undergrad. I can't remember if it was a lecturer or if it was one of my tutors at UCT who gave me this trick. But basically, what you need to do after you write your exam or your test, you need to get some time, maybe on a Saturday or so, And then what you do is you rewrite that test, but you don't give yourself the pressure of time. Yeah, so you won't time yourself during the session. You will just write the test, and you won't have and you won't time yourself, ne? And then obviously they publish the rubric, and you'll be able to mark the script that you've written, your new script now, ne? And then you mark yourself. Yeah, you then are able to identify if you actually know the work, if you are failing because you don't know the work, or if you are failing because of time pressure. Yeah, because those are two totally different things. Yeah, you could maybe know everything or know how to answer everything, but it's just that you don't write fast enough, or you don't think fast enough to be able to write within the allocated amount of time. Or it could be the fact that you don't know your stuff that well. So this is a good exercise to do in order for you to identify, okay, where's topics has got test 1. Yeah, because realistically, after test 1, you're focusing on test 2 stuff. And then the only time that you will actually, again, deep dive into test 1 stuff is when you are preparing for the exam. So you'd rather just make sure that we are ikukumbela while you still have time before you move on to test 2. So you do that exercise, you identify, okay, maybe it's because I'm not too comfortable with these topics. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to go back to those topics, ne? And you're going to do all of the theory work on those topics until you understand them and you are comfortable with them. Make your notes, do your pretty little notes, and then you know at least, okay, I'm comfortable with these topics, ne? Then, if it's because of time pressure, if you identify it's because of time pressure, then you already know that you need to incorporate more past papers into your study sessions. And then what you need to do is you need to take off 10 minutes of your time when you are practicing your questions. Yeah, and this is also something that I did to make sure that I finish my papers, is that I would take 10 minutes off the allocated time, and then the remaining time that I had, I would allocate it amongst questions according to a weighting yazo in marks. Ne? And then that would guide me as to how long I should be spending on a question. And when my time is up for that question, I'd move on to the next one, Then at least I know at the end of everything, I've got 10 minutes extra that I can go back and fill in the gaps that I have left behind. Yabo? Then it means that you've got time to even proofread your work. You've got time to make sure that you're spending all of your energy on sections that maybe need a lot of, beef, need a lot of information. And you also need to do this when you are doing your practice past papers, okay? Because don't do anything on the day of the exam that you haven't practiced before, okay? So as you are preparing for that exam or that test, you need to make sure that you're taking some time off from the allocated amount of time to teach yourself how to write and think faster. Yabo? It's sort of like trying to get your speed up. Yabo? So that when it's actually time to perform, speed is not going to be the thing that makes you repeat a whole entire year. So that is why it's important to do that exercise to know what you need to work on. Is it knowledge or is it speed? So do with that info what you will. And then I think this is the most important tip that I can give you, and it is to make sure that you reward yourself. Have some kind of reward system. Have something to work towards always. So, let me make you an example of how I rewarded myself in CTA 1 and CTA 2. So, CTA 1, I would allocate some money. Ne? I was very financial. So I would allocate myself an allowance or money that I could spend on anything that I wanted if I passed my test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4. So I literally had a spreadsheet with all of my modules, and I would say if I get a 50%, this is how much I'm giving myself for each subject. If I get a 60, this is how much. 70, how much. 80, how much. I can't 80 and above, this is how much I'm giving myself. Ne? And then when I actually achieve those marks, I would go through with my plan. Yabo, it's important to keep the promises that you make to yourself. So if I had said that I'm gonna give myself 2,000 Rand to spend on whatever I want, then when I pass that test, I need to make sure that I'm spending that 2,000 Rand towards something that I want. So I allocated money for my test 1s, my test 2s, test 3s, and test 4s. And then for the exam, for my CTA 1, I said that if I pass CTA 1, I am going to buy myself an iPhone. And back then, the iPhone was the iPhone 8 Plus, top of the range. So I was like, I'm gonna buy myself top of the range iPhone. Ne? And sure enough, when I passed my CTA 1, I bought myself the iPhone 8 Plus. Then CTA 2, same story, rewarded myself, had an allowance for test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4. And then the big gift at the end, the big incentive at the end of passing CTA 2 was that I'm going to buy myself a car. And when I passed my CTA 2, guess what I did? I bought myself a car. So it depends on you about what your rewards are, but now the reward system really worked for me because it always gave me something to look forward to. It always gave me like a challenge. Bana, okay, let's see how much we'll be able to spend after test 1. Let's see how much we'll be able to spend after test 2. So it sort of kept me like engaged and kept me want to keep going. And especially because I really wanted and needed a car at that point, I was not going to let anything stand in my way. I was not going to let anything stand in my way. So yeah, reward yourself, pat yourself on the back if you've done well. Don't only focus on the fact that like you're failing this, or you could have written this, or you forgot to do this on test 1, and then you're so down on yourself. Reward yourself for the things that you did well. Even emsebenzini, if you have, if you got like a really difficult competency, or you did well this ANA period, then do something nice for yourself, because it's not an easy thing to get e-competencies while you are studying. So if you know that, okay, at the end of this ANA period, I was able to get all of my hours and I was able to get a lot of the core competencies that I need to get, then pat yourself on the back, because Zana, even that is a difficult thing to do, but you managed to do it. So make sure that you are rewarding yourself, you're putting incentives in place, and then keep the promises that you make to yourself. I guess the question is, if I were to do it all over again, would I choose to do CTA part-time or full-time? And to be honest, I would do it part-time again, twice on Sunday. I would do it part-time. Personally, for me, and for the way that I am, and for the way that I study, okay? I would do CTA part-time in a heartbeat again. Because Zana, if full-time studying, I don't think it was ever for me. And I almost didn't make it out of full-time studying. But when it came to part-time studying, I really thrived. So yeah, I think I'm a distance learner. Yeah, and that's just me. Am I gonna tell you to do which one? No, I'm not gonna tell you which one you should choose, because it depends on how you study, your personality, your circumstances, and just a preference yako, because yeah, it's going to be a different answer for each and every person. It's going to be a different answer for each and every person. Some people completely crumble when it's part-time. Some people thrive when it's part-time. Some people can't handle it full-time. Some people prefer it full-time because at least then they're putting their whole energy into it and they're only focused on this one thing, you know. But for abantu abafana namge, I can tell you this for free, I don't think I could have done it full-time. I really don't think I could have done it full-time. I think for me, I preferred to do it part-time. All I know is that you need to be self-aware enough to know which one is going to be suitable to you. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys.